Hi guys, welcome to my next video. I'm here at a truck stop. I'm in South Carolina. I just finished up my last video where I had visited a place called I was in Camden battle site. Anyway, I was actually in Bishopville. Anyway, I left there and anyway, I went to Camden battle site, took some pictures, etc., etc. Anyway, the purpose of this next video is I want to share some tips on safety. Most women are, reluctant to, not all women, and I'm one of those women, but a lot of women are reluctant to drive at night. I don't have a problem with it. However, I don't want to, run into wildlife like deer, that kind of thing. And I will talk about that in a second. Anyway, so I finished up my last video tonight. I left, and to get to my next truck stop, I didn't stay at the previous truck stop because it's under construction, and the area that I had to park, excuse me, it's getting a little late. The area that I had to park is kind of desolate and, kind of dark and desolate. So I didn't really want, dark and empty, not desolate, dark and empty. And I really didn't want to stay. Now, last night was that way. The night before, and the night before that, because I stayed about 3, maybe 4 days at that particular truck stop, there was a van there, a transit van, and so I didn't feel, that bad because there was somebody else parked fairly close. And I like to be close to the other vehicles. I really do. I don't want to be too close, but I want to be close enough. Anyway, and there was nobody parked in this, there was just nobody at the truck stop. There was only maybe, last night there was a truck, and and that was it. A truck and one car, a pickup truck and one car, and the car left. Anyway, so when I got ready to leave, I decided to go through an area that is kind of desolate. It's through Liberty Hill, South Carolina. And I talked about this in another video where I went through there back in January, and I had a really bad feeling when I went through there. It was daytime, of course. I've since been back a couple of times and I felt nothing. Anyway, but tonight I decided that was the only route really to take. It was either that route going through Liberty Hill, or another route which was going to have me pretty much just a regular highway as well. So either way, I was driving at night, on regular two-lane roads, which I'm not a big fan of. Anyway, because when it gets nighttime, I like to hit the interstate. If I'm going to drive for any length of time, I want to hit the interstate. Anyway, so I left Camden, South Carolina. I was there at a Food Lion. I left, and it was not quite dark yet, so I felt, okay, that's not bad. It's 33 miles over to this particular truck stop that I'm at now in Great Falls, South Carolina. Anyway, and I apologize. I keep saying anyway. Anyway, my apologies. So I'm here, and everything's good. I'm safe and sound. I arrived. Nothing happened, Everything was kosher. But I want to share a story that happened to me a few years ago, and that kind of broke me on driving at night. Or not driving at night, but driving late at night on desolate two-lane, roads that no one's on. It was probably about 5, maybe 6 years ago. I had traveled, oh my gosh, I had traveled from Michigan, Mackinac City, Michigan, and I traveled all the way to Washington State. Well, on US Highway 2. I was traveling through Washington State, and I started getting this really, I was getting hungry for one, and it was like there was a little, this little voice or little birdie kept telling me I needed to stop and eat. Well, I got to a town, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and there was nothing was open. Nothing, literally nothing was open. There was no gas station, nothing. And if there had been, I would have pulled over and I would have eaten something before continuing on my travels. But there was nothing open. I passed a police officer, and I decided, you know what? I have no choice. I'm going to keep going. And my last stop was going to be Spokane. So I was about 60 miles outside of Spokane, and I don't remember what town I was in. I don't remember what route I was on, but I do remember that I kept getting this little voice that kept telling me to stop and eat, and I just kind of ignored it because there was no place to stop and eat. I mean, there was no place to stop. I had food with me. From when I was traveling in Montana, I kept seeing signs, carry food with you. So I had bread and peanut butter, and probably some chips and maybe, some granola bars or something. But so I had food, and I was going to pull over and, just make myself a peanut butter sandwich, and, at least that would tide me over until I got to Spokane and maybe got something else. Well, I couldn't find a place to stop. Nothing was open. And I didn't want to just pull into a dark parking lot. So I kept going. Right on the outskirts of the town, I hit a deer. Excuse me, it's getting late. Anyway, that deer was huge. I mean, he was huge. Nothing like the deer in the south. Or southeast. He was huge. He almost came into my windshield. He missed my windshield by maybe an inch, 2 inches. That's how close he came. He almost came into the windshield. Luckily he didn't. He kind of rolled off the hood and then laid on the side of the road for a little bit and then got up and, ran away. Well, I got out. I looked at my car. It was still running. The hood was beat up. I couldn't really see that well. I could see that the hood was dented, but that was about all I could see, and I knew I needed to keep going. So I drove a little further down the road, maybe 3-4 miles. I didn't drive far, maybe 5-6 miles. Anyway, I drove about 5 or 6 miles down the road, maybe a little bit further, and I realized the car was making a funny noise. It was definitely not running right. It was making a funny noise. It was making a really horrible, it was horrible. It was a really horrible rapping sound coming from the engine bay. Well, and it sounded bad. So I decided that continuing to drive probably wasn't a good idea. I had about 60 miles to go, and I decided that trying to drive with the engine making a terrible clanking rapping sound, making a terrible rapping sound, like someone was something was knocking on the engine, like an engine knock, probably wasn't a good idea. So I concluded that, gosh, that deer did more damage than, but anyway, so I pulled my car over to the side of the road, had my flashers on, called AAA. Well, I think a couple people stopped. One person stopped. I told him I'd call AAA. That was fine. Then someone else stopped. Again, he seemed nice enough. He stopped and asked if I needed help. He seemed nice enough and all, but I got a really bad feeling. Just a really bad, creepy vibe from the guy. What he was saying was okay. He sounded nice enough. He was asking if I was okay, if I needed help, and I told him no, I was waiting on AAA. But I got a really bad feeling from this guy. Hold on. My apologies. I like for the light to be on. Don't like for the video to be dark. Anyway, so this guy just gave me, he gave me the creeps like no one, I don't think I'd ever encountered anyone that gave me the creeps quite as bad as this guy did. This guy he had a really, really creepy vibe about him. I didn't get a good feeling. I got a really, really bad feeling when this guy stopped. And he didn't seem like he wanted to go. I mean, that was another thing. He asked me, I think maybe, a couple times, 2-3 times, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, which seems nice enough, but he didn't really seem like he wanted to go. It seemed like he wanted to just kind of stand there and hang around, and I got a really bad feeling. It was not a good feeling. I really wasn't, I felt really, I don't know how to put it, but I was very creeped out, and I had a really bad feeling, and that made me question, if I was actually safe where I was parked. Unfortunately, oh, my head's itching. My apologies. Anyway, it made me question whether I was actually safe where I was parked, but the problem was there was nothing I could do, The car was making a terrible rapping sound. I knew that trying to drive it another 60 miles was probably not a good idea with it making a rapping sound that bad, and I'd already called AAA anyway, and so all I had to do was wait for them. The one thing that I will say that I did, I felt so weirded out, so creeped out, and unsafe enough with this guy, and he left, he went on about his way, I watched, and I don't remember what kind of car he was in. I can't remember that now, but I do know that I watched, and I watched him leave, and all that. Anyway, I watched him leave. So he left. I sat there a little bit longer with the flashers going. I sat there for, I don't know how much longer, maybe with the flashers going, maybe 10 minutes, maybe, or maybe not even that. And it probably wasn't even that. It was probably 5 minutes. I don't remember. It wasn't long. And nobody else came around. Nobody passed me. So I decided to turn off the not only did I turn off my flashers, because I figured, because I had given AAA one of the cross street. I had gotten out of the vehicle and walked back to the nearest cross street and told the AAA rep, the closest cross street I was at. So the AAA, the tow truck driver wasn't going to have a problem finding me. All he had to do was map to that road, and he'd be able to find me. I wasn't sure, but that was a risk, and I knew I had to take it, because I didn't know if that man was going to come back or not, and I felt creeped out, and I felt uneasy enough that I thought that what I ultimately did was probably the best thing and the safest thing to do, at least for me. Anyway, whether it was or not, I can't say. But anyway, I turned off my flashers, and I was luckily parked on a very, very wide, the shoulder was, this particular area where I pulled my car off was very wide. I mean, I don't know why, but it had just like a super, super wide shoulder. It was almost like it was wide enough to have been a 2-lane road. So anyway, I turned off my flashers, and I was just right off the road, only a little bit off the road. So I turned off the flashers, backed my car up, and pulled it, as I think there were some trees nearby, and it was very, very dark. So I pulled my car up and over to the side. I pulled my car as, I think maybe 1 or 2, my front tires were probably, or my passenger side tires were probably in the grass just a little bit. It was all flat and all that. So, but I pulled my car over as close to the right-hand side as I could possibly get, with my tires probably on or touching the grass nearest the tree, or near the trees, and it was very, very dark. Luckily that night, I don't even think there was a moon out. It was extremely dark. And where I was able to pull my car, it was as far over to the right-hand side as I could get it. Plus, it was close to some trees, which kind of, I guess, shaded it, so it made it really dark. And my car was also a dark color. It was a navy blue. So, again, luckily for me, I was driving a dark-colored car, navy blue. It pulled over to the side of the road, on the shoulder as far as I could, with my flashers off. Nobody driving down that 2-lane road could see my car, and that's why I did it. I did not know if that man was coming. I didn't know how long it was going to take AAA. Ultimately, actually, it ended up taking AAA, I think, like 2 hours to get there. So, and they had told me it was going to take a while. I was an hour outside of Spokane, and I think the tow truck driver was coming from someplace even farther out than that. So I knew I was going to be sitting there for a good hour, maybe probably a couple of hours. And I felt afraid enough, fearful enough, and uneasy enough that I did not want to be sitting there with my flashers on if that man decided to return. And so I did what I thought was the safest thing for me, and that was to pull my car over to the side of the road as far as I could in an area that was as dark as possible with my flashers off. Luckily, the AAA driver got there it ultimately took him about, this was 10 o'clock at night, and he didn't arrive. I think AAA said it was going to take 2 hours, and ultimately, this guy didn't come and pick me up until 3:30 in the morning. So, I guess I probably placed the call. It was about 10 o'clock. By the time I got pulled over the side of the road, probably about 10:30, 11. So I was there on the side of the road for ultimately about 4 hours. As a matter of fact, I was just about asleep when the tow truck driver finally got there. Luckily, he found me. I wasn't sure if he would find me, but he found me. Anyway, and he offered to drop me off at a motel. I said, it was like, by the time I got to I was driving my Chevy Impala, and by the time I got to the Chevy dealer, it was like 4:30 in the morning, 5. I was like, there's no point. You know, these guys are going to have the bay doors open at like 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'm going to be in there by 7. It's only going to be a couple of hours. I mean, no point. Anyway, so luckily, everything turned out fine. Everything turned out great. AAA came pick me up. Creepy didn't come back. Or at least as far as I know, Creepy didn't come back. If Creepy did turn around and drive back by again at a later time, because there were, I sat there for like 4 hours, and a lot of cars did go up and down the road. Not too many, but a few. So if Creepy came back, I don't know. If he came back, he didn't stop, or either that, or he couldn't see my car, so he didn't stop. And that was ultimately what I wanted. I really felt uneasy enough that I didn't want that man. If that man came back, I didn't want him to see me sitting on the side of the road, and I didn't want anyone else stopping either, because I did not know. The next person might be even, might not just be creepy. They might, be a creepy killer. I mean, I don't want to, that sounds bad, but I mean, as a woman, you have to be safe. As a man, you have to be safe. It's not just women, but men too. You have to do whatever you can to be safe. And ultimately, everything worked out. AAA came. AAA dropped me off at the Chevy dealer about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. At 7 in the morning, I walked in. They offered me some coffee and donuts, and somebody went outside, and turns out it was one of the simplest things it could have been, but I had no clue. I didn't know what was wrong with the car. It turned out when the deer hit the hood of my car, he actually knocked a spark plug wire loose. And it was loose, or off. It knocked it off. I think it wasn't just, he knocked it off. And that's why the engine was rapping and making such a terrible sound. But I didn't know that. My apologies again. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up now. But anyway, just to finish up, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was, I didn't know that. And I also found out that if I continued to drive, that it could have burned a valve up, driving with the spark plug wire off like that. So anyway, at least that's what they told me. Anyway, everything, and then the rest of the story, there's a whole other story with that. Took my insurance company like over a year to do anything about my Impala. And then by then the transmission was failing, and I told them just to send me my money. Heck, I'd been driving around with a dented hood for a year and a half. It didn't matter at that point. But anyway, I just wanted to share that story. I don't know if that, anyone watching will help. But anyway, that's one of the reasons that now, that was a lesson for me. And it was a hard lesson. Luckily nothing happened. It could have been, much worse. But it did teach me from then on out to do my best to be off the road by dark, or at least as close to dark as possible. And I still drive. I'm not totally, fixed. I still drive some at night. I usually try to drive on the interstate. I definitely get off the 2-lane roads by nightfall. That, absolutely. I like to be at my stop. I usually like to be at my stop by 8 o'clock, and or maybe earlier. Tonight, I didn't get here until 9:30. It's later than that now, but I pulled into this truck stop at 9:30 p.m. Last night, I think I wasn't very far from the truck stop. I was in town. And I think I got there about 10 o'clock. I think it was later last night. I didn't get there until like 10 o'clock. But I sat in the Food Lion parking lot playing on my phone and, and doing some of my videos and editing and uploading pictures to the cloud. And it was only like 2 or 3 miles to the truck stop. So that's one reason I didn't worry that much. But anyway, the night before, I think I got there about 8 o'clock. I did get there fairly early. I got off the road. Everything was done. I was ready to eat. Speaking of which, it's time for me to eat now. I need to go in the truck stop. I need to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to probably get me something to drink and then come back and eat some tuna. Eat some tuna and maybe a tuna sandwich. And watch a movie. So anyway, I don't know if what I just shared with you will help you, but I hope it does. If you ever find yourself in a situation like me, if you can get in your car as far off to the side of the road as possible, of course, is a safe, smart thing to do, just so no one hits you. That's number one, so no one will hit you. Also, getting off the road, by nightfall, that's pretty smart bet too. So anyway, if you're watching, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace and God bless.